Hi, I'm Ned at Spirit Law, business consultant to wellnesspreneurs moving online and also wellness consultant myself and having worked online in my own business for several years. In this video I'm going to have a chat with Adele, another yoga teacher and friend of mine, about privacy and data protection. This looks at the regulatory aspects of what you need to have in a privacy policy, some of the bigger issues about going online and the open wonders of worldwide clients versus your local studio clients, adding in the concerns of image and video and audio, and also a couple of those security settings for technology just to be mindful of. Let us know any questions, hit subscribe if you're enjoying the videos, and a little bit of a donation is always welcome if you fancy it. Enjoy. Okay, so Adele, I know that when we've spoken so far, you've raised quite a few concerns regarding safety. And obviously safety comes in many ways when we're teaching wellness, and especially physical movement. And for me, it also crosses over into privacy, which is a part of what we're concerned about with someone's safety, not just their physical well-being in movement, but also how we're looking after their personal data and their sensitive personal data in working with them. And, you know, that's the case for everyone, but online we come with a whole load of new interesting problems, potentially. And you've raised some great stuff when we've been chatting that's been really insightful about some of the concerns that some teachers might be having. So I guess the first thing just to get an idea of is what you are concerned with as the safety and what you would think of as the personal data of your clients when you're teaching them.
Yeah, so it's really hard to get your head around what you really need to do when you go online. So how is it best to collect people's data? And if we're teaching online, suddenly we're opened up to all the different countries potentially in the world, potentially. So are there different rules around collecting people's data and how you let them know what you're collecting?
Yeah, so different countries do have very different policies. There are some international kind of governance and approaches, but to be honest, it's quite varied as to how these rules work. So it's important to understand your local law as to where you're operating, and hopefully that's where most of your clients are coming from still. So you can comply with what's the local privacy laws in your area. And, you know, in Australia, it's very different from the US, which is also very different from the UK and now the rest of Europe, since the UK's left Europe. But where those clients come from does impact what they expect you to do with personal data and their privacy. And I often think of privacy being very much to do with our reputation and our brand management and how we wish to be seen as a trusting and quality provider that cares for our client. So if you're going to take on clients who are out of your area, they are going to have expectations that comply with their local laws. And so you might want to know, if you're going to target certain areas, get an idea of what their privacy expectations are going to be so that you can comply with a little bit more maybe stringent measures that they would be expecting. However, there are some specific laws that are called extraterritorial, which means that they do reach beyond their own jurisdiction. And Europe is one of those areas that does that. So if you are going to take on clients from the continent of Europe, you will be needing to comply with their data protection law, which is known as the GDPR, which, don't worry about what it means in terms of breaking it all down, but it's very strict and stringent in terms of what you collect about somebody, how you collect it, what you're going to do with it, and their rights in order to manage that data and have control over what you can and can't do with it at any time. And if you're going to be working with those kind of clients, you're going to want to make sure that you comply with that standard. And I would say my approach, having lots of European clients, is I try and stick with that standard, but also it's very high standard. And if you want to be someone that's really trusted and have a good reputation, I don't see a problem in working to the highest standard and saying, I work to that standard because I see the value in it, and I see that value because I see the value in you and your personal data and what you're sharing with me. And that does hold a lot of quality information for you as a teacher.
Is it difficult to get hold of those guidelines?
No, there's loads of information out there about what the guidelines are, and effectively the rules apply to a European citizen. So handling the data of a European citizen is the key. You can go to Europe's Information Commission office, and they can give you the countries that they deem protect to a similar standard, but also what those standards are for sharing data and how you process data. So processing data is taking someone's name on that health form, sticking it into your computer, and then emailing them saying you've got an appointment. That is you processing somebody's personal data. So at no point, as soon as you take a client or even take a potential client, email, you're starting to collect data. So you need to be saying, this is how I handle it. So that means that you want to have an idea of the process that you're going to use for how you collect data, what you're doing with it, and being able to tell your clients what you do with their data. This is something that I call a data audit. This is part of the requirements under GDPR. And I think it's really good practice from a marketing perspective as well. So when you're thinking as a business of, oh my God, this could be a total waste of time, don't think about this as as a waste of time. A data audit is a great way to know the value of the data you've got, to target your clients and to target what you are creating for your clients. So, you want to know, what exactly do you want to collect? Why are you collecting it? And what are you going to do with it? And that's what you tell a client in your privacy policy. You put up front, I'm collecting this information about you so that I can do the following things. And if you've got any questions, you can get in touch with me. If you don't want me to handle your data in that way, please let me know. And then you give them the routes and the means to get hold of you. And they can then put those requests in. Okay, of, please delete, please tell me, what have you got stored about me? So if you create client file and you have all your correspondence with them in there, and you have their health form and maybe any of your notes about them, they'll have the right to see that kind of thing that you're storing. If you are then adding in the online side of things, then you want to be storing maybe some of the stuff that says what classes they attended, so that you know what videos they might be in, if you're doing virtual live videos and recording them. So that's the kind of thing you might want to keep track of. And then what that also starts to do when you start to collect, what classes are they attending, then you know their interests, right? You know what they show up to. So then when you're developing a new business, you could be like, I'm doing this new class. I think that you'd really, really love it because I saw you were really enjoying the other thing that I was doing beforehand. So that's why it's a good marketing tool, because you can go into that data and use it to then create products that you can sell to those clients, targeting them and not the ones who really aren't interested in whatever it is you're creating next.
So when you work out which platform you would like to use, so which appointment platform like Calendly or Booker-Mat or Nabuki or whatever, all those systems have clients' data stored in them, as well as the classes that they attend, right? So can you just choose one of those options and then know that when you put the data in, that it's all going to be in the one spot and it's going to be stored in a way that is compatible with data collection?
Kind of. So obviously,
it's got to be simple, otherwise it's not going to happen for me and probably for other yoga teachers.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess, we talked about before, which I think didn't make it to a video, unfortunately, which was the kind of the more software integration that you've got as a platform. So say you buy booking, you pay for the software, the booking platform that it collects the data, it does like a collection of a health form for you. It does the booking, it does the payment processing. It will have integrations with other platforms like Stripe, which you'll need a Stripe account for, which also stores data.
You'll probably end up wanting to do emails to your clients, and you'll need to use some kind of mail service provider. So say you get an integration with MailChimp, you technically are having data being transferred and processed across those different platforms. And you will want to make sure that in your privacy policy, you're setting out those platforms that you're using, or the software that obviously has to process. I mean, it is all essential and necessary. So when it comes to data, one of the key things is we want to say what's necessary processing as part of you providing a service. So if someone then was to say, I don't want you to keep that data, you might be then saying, well, I need it. It's necessary to know your email address as part of the service. If I don't store your email address, I can't confirm the booking. So, you know, maybe that's the way that you run your business. So you want to know what's essential for you to be able to run and operate, so that you can say that to a client, you know, if you don't want me to store this data, then there's going to be an issue around me being able to just carry out the basic service, you know. And you'd often say that with the health form, like, you need to complete the health form. I need to know this to know how to provide the safest teaching and the correct adjustments and suggestions for you. But at the same time, there may be things that you're collecting that are more to do with a potential marketing opportunity around your client. And obviously you need to know what country they live in, or potentially what state they live in, so that you know what laws you potentially need to comply with. So, you know, people may be funny about giving you some information and maybe not, maybe someone doesn't really mind, but those different platforms are all going to be collecting data. So unless you're literally, you know, emailing somebody and that's the only way you're collecting data, and then you're putting it in an Excel sheet and you're just emailing back and they're doing a bank transfer and you're not collecting any bank details, you're not collecting any credit card details, then maybe you've got quite a limited amount of privacy you need to worry about. But when you use a booking platform, you just want to be able to list out, I use these platforms as an essential part of running this service. I may email you. If you don't want me to email you, please opt out. In Europe, you actually have to do a double confirmation for them to opt in. So it's the opposite of what we tend to do in Australia. It's a much more proactive approach for the client to let you have the data in the first place than potentially you would do in Australia, where I know there's a lot of telephone marketing and text marketing still here, which doesn't tend to happen so much in Europe. So, you know, those kind of things in terms of how you operate your business, your clients are going to want to know that that's how you're going to contact them and what's essential. And you just want to have a list of what platforms do you use and why are you using it and what data is being collected. So, you know, if you're going to use MailChimp, you need to put in, you know, MailChimp, email address, name, country, you know, purpose to send marketing emails. You know, confirmation emails come from booking service. So Calendly will automatically do that as part of the service. They can opt out of receiving the confirmation emails. Yeah. So you just want to know what platforms you're using and why you're using them.
Yeah.
And what's going on with those platforms.
And how you're storing the data.
I mean, you know, you don't need to get too technical about it. If that makes sense, you know, you don't need to worry about, oh, what server do they use? You want to know that they're using a secure server, and you want to ensure that your access to the servers are secure. If you're storing stuff in paper form, then you need a safe. And if you're storing it on a cloud service, then obviously try and make sure that there's a two-step authentication process on the cloud service, so that someone can hack into your account, access all your client data, and then you'd be subject to potentially, you know, having to report that to Privacy Information Commissioner authorities in your local area. And also you'd have to notify all of your clients if there was a privacy breach and tell them that their data has been accessed. So, you know, then they might want to change their email addresses, that kind of stuff. So you want to put in place the protections and have an idea of what data you're asking each service to collect. And why. Yeah. You don't need to make it complicated, especially if you're trying to spell it out software.
Yes. So just as brief as possible outline, and is that what you pretty much need in the privacy policy?
So in a privacy
using data.
So in a privacy policy, what you want to do is state some key things. So you want to state what country you're complying with, obviously in terms of laws. Is useful to say. You know, so if you're in New South Wales, you want to say this business is in New South Wales, it complies with New South Wales privacy law. That's the kind of thing you want to do as a setup so that clients know where you're coming from. You then want to say what data is and what data you collect. So you'd say personal data is your name, date of birth, address, telephone number, and email. If you're doing videos online, you might want to say, you know, your image and your voice as well, because they are identifiable of somebody's person. So you're saying that, you're saying I am collecting that data so that I can provide you with the service, and if you've opted in for my monthly email, say, or my weekly text message, or you know, you can opt into my Facebook group, say if you're doing a Facebook group. So you just want to say like the things that you're offering out in terms of where their data is going to be. If you are collecting data through Facebook marketing campaigns, stuff like that, you need to say, I'm collecting data through Facebook. Obviously, it's controlled by your privacy settings from Facebook. That's within your control. You can go to Facebook and change your privacy settings within the Facebook community forums and pages that maybe you've set up for your group. So it kind of, there's a bit of obviously what model you're using, what platforms you're using, as to some of the extra things you might need to say about the data you're collecting and what you're doing with it in that little setup bit at the beginning. You're then going to say, you know, who you are and that you're responsible for their data, whether you've decided to incorporate yourself as a business or just be a sole trader. And then you want to set out that you're going to use their data with respect and be transparent and comply with the law. And that you will always try to keep it accurate and that it won't be for any longer than you necessarily need to. And at that point, it can be useful to state something like you're not going to keep their data for more than 6 years, which is what most insurers will require you to keep someone's data in terms of potential claims.
Okay, that could be hard to keep tabs on, couldn't it? If a client leaves and then comes back and then leaves and then you don't really have an end date, but you're actually legally required to get rid of their data if they haven't been with you for 6 years. Yeah. Is that what I'm understanding?
So basically, So you get rid of it after 6 years, once you've stopped having a client, you know. So, I mean, I guess it depends how long you've been operating. If you've been operating over 6 years, you might need to have a little tidy up. See who's definitely not been around for 6 years attending your classes, and then get rid of those people off of your lists.
Which is probably good work. Probably a good idea anyway, isn't it? For just being...
And you're targeting. If your client hasn't come to you for 6 years, they're probably not interested in what you're doing anymore. So why are you keeping the data to potentially do something to them? You know, like it doesn't make good marketing sense anyway to keep that data for that duration. So, you know, it's just good housekeeping, I guess, is what I would say as a business operation. You then also, you know, if you're keeping more sensitive information, depending on the kind of work you do, you need to highlight other sensitive stuff. So if it's something to do with race, ethnicity, religious aspects of somebody, more stuff to do with their health or their sex life. What I was just trying to say is that there are some types of information that are seen as being particularly sensitive that you need to be really mindful of and really clearly address if you're going to be collecting that kind of data. And health and sex are some of them. Health is generally more if you're doing more personal kind of body work, not necessarily health in the way that we think of as teachers. But obviously, if you are asking people about heart problems or you know, pregnancy, that kind of stuff, then you know that is sensitive, and you do need to specifically highlight the reason why you're collecting that more than just normal information and what you might do with that. The next thing that you just want to say in your privacy policy is that you are the data controller. You're the person who is in control of what you're choosing to collect and how you're doing it and what you're going to do with it. And that you use data processors. Now, data processors are your software providers, basically. So they are the people who are doing the processing for you. And that's why you might have that chain of flow of data where You've got your input form that's been designed by Calendly. That's then gone into a booking platform. That's gone into a calendar. That's gone into, I don't know, Google Calendars. Then that data's going into, then there's the payment part, which is going through Stripe, which then obviously that's been stored in Stripe. Then, you might have that integrate into your Xero booking platform. And so obviously you've got client data in your Xero accounting platform as a client that's paying money. And then on top of that, maybe you're collecting their email address so that you can send them their monthly email, or you're collecting their phone number. So you've got that you can text them the confirmations. And so you just need to have all of those things laid out and who that is that's providing those services as your processors. It doesn't need to be, it's literally, it can be a list. And then the last thing with that is that whether or not there's a cross-border transfer. So one of the issues, especially for Europe, is when you transfer data between countries, because of different countries having those different laws, and whether or not someone would want their data to be transferred to a country that has less stringent laws, where they could be exposed to horrific marketing and scams and whatever. And so at that point, especially with European clients, you need to tell them if you're transferring their data and what the standard is that's being complied with in that transfer of data. So that then comes back to that territorial side, right, of us thinking about the fact that we're going global maybe, but we are still having to respect people's local laws and rights that they're used to and their expectations as part of how we set up our reputation and manage and build trust.
So if we stick to the highest stringency, then we're probably covered.
I would generally, obviously, like there's a part of me, the lawyer in me is very cautious. I'm not still a lawyer anymore, so I wouldn't necessarily, say that it's advice, but that's my strategy, is to try and go with the best version, just to feel that I am creating a place that's the safest and the most trustworthy for my clients. They know that their safety and well-being is my priority, and I think that that amount of respect for their data is a part of that. Especially with everything going online, and even more so now with videos, the fact that so many people are doing live classes and recording them to do stuff maybe with those videos and not really knowing what to do with those videos. Some people might feel very uncomfortable with being videoed. They might have, body image issues. And also they might be in roles or jobs that require that their privacy needs to be protected. And so they may not want you to record those videos, and you might not be able to say their name on the video, because for them that's a real security concern. So you need to be alive to doing those live videos of what your clients want. And my default is not to record a call until I've kind of reminded everybody that it's being videoed, and would they like to turn off their videos and make sure that I don't say their name if they don't want me to. And then I would set record.
You've got your permission, it's your privacy policy, but for every single video call, you would also remind them of whether they want to be videoed or not. Or
myself, yes. I know that Zoom permits you to put auto record on, and that's super easy, and it just means it's happening and you don't need to worry about it. And like there's enough technology, and oh my god, overwhelm, and maybe all your clients just couldn't care less, and they're all naked yogis who'd be happy to be videoed naked and be like, yeah, this is fun, like let's share it with the world. Or it's a load of mums and they're like, yeah, we really want to show like mums doing yoga, and we're all holding our babies over our head while we're doing it, and isn't this an awesome image to represent? Like there's reasons why people want to be videoed, and there's also people who don't. And I just think that you never know someone's mood. You never know when someone might just be in a really sensitive state. And when we're talking about safety and the well-being of our clients and that being our priority, I just personally feel that it's a part of how I create a safe space, is to try and give that moment before launching into, and I'm now recording you, and who knows what I'm going to do with this video. I haven't quite worked it out, because this is all a very exciting new adventure. I might make some money out of it, and they might be like, I don't want my video, my bum, doing whatever that thing is I'm asked to do, and the videos can be an awkward angle, whatever, and people don't feel great. So that would be my approach. Obviously it's for a teacher and for your client base as to whether or not you would do that. I think that it's also important to add in that in going online, change your health forms and your disclaimers to upfront say if you're going to be videoing or that you might be videoing, so that, you know, you're being clear that you're going to video the sessions. And you know, maybe you could put in your form, please put, if you know, please do not put your camera on if you don't want to be videoed, but know that I won't be able to see your practice to give you feedback. Please let me know if you don't want me to say your name, and you can put that as a note, so then when you see them attending your class, you know that as well. If you want to go for that auto record option. So just be upfront in your health form that you're going to video, and maybe add it into your terms of service and your privacy policy. Obviously, that you're going to be capturing image and what you're going to do with it, where those videos are going to be stored, how are you going to keep those videos secure. That's going to go in that privacy policy again. So know what you're doing if you can with a video. Being vague doesn't create a lot of trust.
Yeah. So it's really about getting clear about all of this up front before we go online.
If you can, and securely storing it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And the same as a side point, if you're not going to store the video files in an online server, you want to make sure that you've got a password protected hard drive that you're saving the videos onto, so that someone couldn't hack in and, you know, access those files and then share them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what about settings, the technical settings, so that you don't get hacked, like for Zoom, if you're using Zoom or any of the other online video platforms for live recording and conference calling? How do you protect yourself against people hacking the system?
Well, there's not nothing you can do. It's a great opportunity for hackers right now and trolls to attack Zoom. So when it comes to Zoom, it's useful if you can go into your settings to just change a few things to do with screen sharing, limit that coming from clients so that it's only the host, so it's only you in control of what's being shared. And that also, obviously, from a safety point of view, stops any pornographic or other images that may distress somebody being shared by someone in your group, or if their computer's even hacked, and then that gets shared into your video sessions. So try and limit that to just yours. It can also be useful to disable the join before host buttons, so that people aren't in the forum before you arrive, so that people aren't sharing or discussing anything that potentially you can't moderate and therefore upset somebody. I mean, obviously, it depends on your community. If you're used to running group classes in a hall, maybe everyone knows each other. You haven't taken it outside of that remit. That might be less of a concern. You probably don't want other people co-hosting. So you want to make sure that's not happening. And you also want to disable any file transfers within the platforms if possible. Same on Skype, so that there aren't files within that contain more viruses that are being shared that could then get into people's computers and cause problems, especially into yours. And then also making sure that you don't have clients coming and going in and out of the session. So once they've logged in, they want to stay. And then if they log out, they're gone and they can't come in and out. And that just stops the link kind of becoming too flexible. It can also be useful to try and generate a new link for each appointment rather than using the predetermined personal ID of a teacher, because obviously that makes you more vulnerable to someone getting in to your classes who's not been authorised. The main thing obviously we're concerned about is disturbing content that could upset and trigger any kind of trauma for your clients, as well as the technological side and impact on people's machines. So just being responsible as a teacher and hosting a digital platform of the safety of the online space that you are creating. Obviously, if you are hacked, just thinking in terms of what you need to do in such a horrible event, and hopefully that doesn't happen to anyone, is just, you know, go back to that data audit that you've created, your list of all your clients, and then you're going to need to contact all of those people who are affected by whatever aspect of technology has been hacked, whether it's, you know, your MailChimp account, whether it's the Stripe account or your Calendly account, whatever it is you're using. Know who's on those platforms, and then you need to be able to reach out to them and say, this has been hacked, you might need to, you know, change your passwords, on your email addresses, and just double check that there's no fraud transactions on your card, just so that you notify everybody. And in Europe, definitely you're required to at least submit a notification, and you want to log every time something like this happens, so that obviously your business knows what you've done, so that if a information authority asks you what has happened, you know, and you can say up front, like, I got hacked, this is what I did, I told everybody, you know, I had confirmation that people are okay, kind of thing, you know.
So by logging
it, change.
Do you just mean writing it out in a Word document and saving it with a date?
Yeah, so you can write it out in a Word document. In my privacy package, I have like a little way that you can log either any request from a client that they want something changed in their data. So every request that you get is called a subject access request under GDPR. So every time a subject requests access to their data, something to be done with their data, you just note subject required, following, I've done the following, I've notified them, I've been hacked. You know, I've been hacked through this service, or, you know, this processor notified me they've been hacked. I've notified the following participants, you know, and I've notified the following people of the steps and these actions to take. And you just keep a little, you know, note in a folder of all of those things and the correspondence that goes with it. I mean, to be fair, in all the years that I've done it, I think I've only ever had like 2 subject access requests. From clients, a lot of the time they don't. I mean, I had one client who really didn't want anything. She didn't want anything stored in Google at all, which was fair enough. So, you know, those are the kind of things that you just might want to be aware of. I've been lucky to date with hacking, but then you see Sony PlayStation got horrifically hacked, and, you know, that was a huge number of people who were affected. So, you know, just being alive to the fact it doesn't matter your scale, right? We're all moving online. There's a whole load of technology we're all getting our heads around. It's very easy to miss a setting or miss a setup. Yeah. So just taking your time, not rushing, being sensible, asking your clients, are they okay with a screenshot being captured of them? You know, are they okay with the live video, their name being said, as well as all the data that you might be collecting from new clients and where they're from, what they might expect you to do with it.
And just one more question, which is a pretty common one, I think. You have to put in a clause in your privacy policy that you won't sell any of their data to any third party. Is that correct? Is that a legal requirement?
No, it's not legal to say that you're not going to sell. You just need to tell someone if you're going to sell them. That's the key point of telling them what you're doing with the data. So, you know, if you're using data like Facebook uses our data to serve advertising and make money, right? All your Facebook activity is being, you know, within your privacy settings is being used to target advertising served at you so that they make money. So you could do the same thing if you put ads on your website around your videos, right? You know, you would be then saying, you know, like, my website has advertising on it. If you're not going in for targeting it at your users because they don't all have a member login, you know, that's a very advanced setup for you to then say, oh, you know, I'm going to target my users and advertise and all of that stuff. Like, don't worry about it. If you're interested in selling data, you know, you're probably going to need to have a pretty good list of clients for someone to be interested in buying the data, to be honest. So generally it's best practice probably just not to sell client data and just use it for yourself, and not think about that aspect. And, you know, then you can just be clear, I'm not selling it, it's non-commercial, I'm using it to market to you, potentially to tell you of the service that I'm providing to you. I might use the videos to make some more money, you know, to make some more money by selling the videos or offering a on-demand website. If you don't want to be in the videos, you know, please don't record yourself so that I'm not using your image in those videos.
Okay.
That's the commercial side, I guess, of the privacy that you're capturing. If you're using those videos to make small video clips and advertise them, stick them on YouTube, make revenue, then you obviously still want to be saying that, but you're not selling the data at that point.
Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I guess I thought of that question because you see clauses where it says your data will not be given to a third party. And so
that's slightly different. So data given to a third party, it's that thing of, is it a commercial transaction that you're selling the data to a third party, you're giving it to a third party, or you can have data going to a third party as in a processor, right? Because they're processing. So that's the difference, you know, is are you then going to sell your marketing list to a new company, right? So like, say, an example might be when I had my UK company, my clients signed up to my UK company mailing list. So when I left the company, what we did was we emailed them all and said, you know, Nid is leaving the company. Would you, if you want to not be on Nid's new email list, please, you know, let us know. And then that meant that people could actively say they didn't want to hear from me still. That wasn't selling it to another party, if that makes sense, because they were all used to hearing from me anyway. And I'd already been doing kind of, you know, our emails included stuff about me. So it was just that slightly different angle. And that meant that people could choose, you know, was it really what the company was doing in the UK, or was it more the online stuff that they were interested in following? Does that make sense? But that's not, and I am now, and that makes me technically a third party.
Yes, because you did split off. Yeah,
exactly.
And you were fully transparent. You gave them the option to opt out. Yeah,
and I think that's always the best thing to do, is the transparency. It really is, like, the more transparent you can be, the more honest you are, the more people are going to trust you, and then the more likely you're going to build a good reputation for having that integrity in what you're doing. And that will also make a safer space. And that will mean that your clients feel safe when they're doing the classes. And then, you know, hopefully they'll be more relaxed, and you can manage the safety aspects of, are they going to hit the table with their head as they come up from that downward facing dog? You know, you can be more concerned around, you know, did someone in the group say something and trigger someone else? And, you know, like, how do you manage that dynamic? Like, there's other stuff that you can then worry about, which is hopefully the stuff you're used to worrying about as a teacher in a room.
Focus on what you're actually doing.
And just think of setting up your Zoom as setting up your space, setting up your studio space. The technology you're doing, once you've done it, it's done.
There's more to get your head around than I would have thought initially, though, because you think, it's just easy, you just get people to join you on an online video, but actually, in fact, there's quite a lot to do and get your head around and put into place.
I mean, to do it in a respectful way, I think that there's things that you want to be mindful of. You know, I know that it's one thing, yes, to get on with things and have a go, and, you know, people want stuff, so they're asking for classes to be done and created. You know, there's a call for help. And that can make us jump very quickly. You know, you can mop these things up as you go along. So don't stress if you've started and then you're going, I'm supposed to do all of this stuff. You know, just start doing it, you know, and then get it in place. But the nice thing is, once you get these things in place, it's done. And like, it gives you that structure, it gives you the boundaries, you're creating a safe space, everyone knows. And then that hopefully keeps you rolling, and it gives you all something to refer back to keep that safety net for everyone.
It makes a lot of sense.
But it's not a process. You don't need to overthink it. You just want to go through the steps of checking and thinking about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And again, that comes back to those values, and it comes back to the why you're doing it and what's the purpose of it and what are you trying to create.
And I think the clearer you are on what it is you're doing, the easier it is to answer these questions and to just get it done.
And to pick the tech that supports what you're trying to achieve, and the settings that match that. Right.
It makes a lot of sense.
Thanks for your questions, Adele, and for your, again, always really useful insights and wisdom that comes to asking these questions.
Thank you. I always learn so much.